I hereby call to order the House of Representatives for the first regular session of the 74th General Assembly of the State of Colorado.
Day one, the first day of the Colorado legislative session, is now underway. The issues lawmakers are looking to tackle and Governor Polis's top priorities for the new session. An incoming state lawmaker has his guns stolen from his work truck just outside the state capitol. Why Capitol Hill is a hotspot for car break-ins. And ending with a win. The Broncos score 30 and get the home win. Is there reason for hope? Well, it might come with a new head coach. We have the latest on that search. Thanks so much for joining us here on Denver 7 News at 11. I'm Jason Grenauer. We begin with some ongoing traffic news from the high country. I-70 westbound still closed at the Eisenhower Tunnel because of a crash further down the hill. Here's a live look from one of the CDOT cameras in the area. Now that crash has kept the westbound lanes closed for most of this late morning. The detour to get around that closure is to take Loveland Pass. Colorado lawmakers are back at work this morning as the 2023 legislative session is now officially underway. Denver 7's Brandon Richard is live outside the Capitol this morning with what we can expect from lawmakers this session.
Well, Jason, the new legislative session officially began about an hour ago, and here in the last few minutes, the newly elected state representatives and state senators were sworn in by the Chief Justice. Of course, there is a lot of things that lawmakers want to be able to accomplish here over the next 4 months. Of course, passing a state budget and approving funding for education. Those are always the top priorities here for lawmakers, and that usually happens later in the session around April. Lawmakers also plan to focus a lot on housing this year. Typically, you see that as a local issue, but lawmakers say they are interested in seeing what they might be able to do to make housing more affordable. Crime, another top issue. Lawmakers expected to vote on some type of proposal to increase penalties for auto theft. There's been a lot of talk about gun reform and making changes to the state's red flag law after that Club Q shooting. Democratic State Senator Chris Kolker says there are a lot of things to consider this session.
We haven't decided what our top priorities are yet, but nothing's off the table in regards to the red flag law and making sure it's enforced. But we want to work with stakeholders from all over the state, across lines to make sure that we're hearing from everyone and we're not just pushing things through because we want to.
And Senator Kolker says that he's also interested in improving the state's behavioral health system. We should point out that Democrats are in control, firm control of both chambers this year, but they are vowing to work with Republicans when they can this session. Live at the state capitol, Brandon Richard, Denver 7.
Now, Brandon, before we let you go, obviously this is the first the first real legislative session, the first time all these lawmakers are getting together after an election. You talked about working together. What changes, I guess, post-election are we keeping an eye on? And just kind of what's the mood out there at the state capitol?
Well, Justin, I can tell you the mood is lawmakers are very excited. They're pretty excited to get to work. So much has happened over the last few months. That Club Q shooting, one example. So they're really eager to get to work to try to find solutions to all of the problems facing Colorado. And yes, a number of lawmakers, over a third of all lawmakers, are brand new. They've never done this before, and that includes about half of the members in the Colorado House. So it'll be interesting to see the perspective that these new lawmakers will bring, and just by their sheer numbers alone, you can expect them to play a significant role when it comes to crafting legislation this session.
Our Brandon Richard live at the state capitol for us. Our political reporter Megan Lopez will be picking up coverage from here. She will have the latest a little bit later on this afternoon on Denver 7 Plus. Brandon, thanks so much. Now we're keeping a close eye on bills that have anything to do with educating our kids as lawmakers head back to work, and many lawmakers are already putting some ideas forward. During a legislative preview session hosted by Chalkbeat Colorado, several lawmakers named addressing teacher shortages as a top priority. Now Denver 7 morning anchor Nicole Brady sat in on that virtual meeting. And one thing both Republicans and Democrats agreed on, teachers should be paid more. She spoke with Chalkbeat's Erica Meltzer about that.
You saw Representative McLaughlin, who comes from southwestern Colorado, talking about how in New Mexico they now have a minimum teacher salary of $60,000. school districts in her area are paying $30,000, and that teacher can drive half an hour commute and double their salary. So it is a really big problem.
Now, unlike some other states, Colorado can't just pass a bill to set a minimum teacher salary because we're what's called a local control state. Now, we will be following these bills as they're introduced, and we'll bring you updates on how your schools and school districts could be affected. Well, just hours before the state legislative session began, a state lawmaker simply quit her post. The Colorado Sun reports Boulder County Democrat Tracy Burnett resigned. The main reason? She's facing criminal charges. Burnett allegedly lied about where she lived so she could run in a more politically favorable area. A committee will appoint Burnett's replacement. You can read all the details of what happened right now on Denver7.com. Denver police are investigating 2 guns that were stolen from an incoming lawmaker at the state capitol. Representative-elect Ron Weinberg's truck was broken into while he was in Denver for orientation late last week. The thief took 2 locked and unloaded pistols, some keys, and a photo album. They left all of his tools in the bed of that truck. Weinberg told the Colorado Sun that he immediately reported that theft to police as required by law. Now, we dug into the numbers and found that over the last year, there were more than 460 thefts from cars on Capitol Hill. Now, that's the entire neighborhood, not just the state capitol, but that breaks down to more than 1 car break-in a day.
The number 1 place in America where guns are stolen from is in cars.
So let's talk about safe gun storage. Every year, thousands of guns are stolen here in Colorado, and police say many of those guns are later used in another crime. Experts say one of the best ways to keep them from getting into the wrong hands is using what's called a snap safe.
So this here is called a snap safe, and all this is a device that'll let you secure or help you secure your firearm within your car. Snap safe is not the only brand you can buy. There are lots of different brands. It's not foolproof. The ultimate protection against having your gun stolen in your car is to not leave it in your car.
Now, these safes are stored underneath a seat, and a thief would need bolt cutters in order to steal that box. Weathers says they're sold at most gun or sporting goods stores. They normally cost around $30. Tomorrow, Broomfield City Council will discuss 9 gun control measures, including increasing the purchasing age for a rifle or shotgun to 21 years old, a 10-day waiting period, proof of firearms training, and then restrictions on where guns can be carried. Tuesday's council meeting starts at 6 p.m. Sadly, 2 snowmobilers are dead, killed in an avalanche over the weekend a few miles east of Winter Park. It happened Saturday afternoon on Corona Pass in Grand County. Both snowmobilers were caught and buried in that avalanche. Their names haven't been released yet by the Grand County Coroner's Office. 4 people in total have now died in avalanches during this year's season so far in our state. Let's talk about the Broncos now. They finished up that high expectation, low return, disappointing season with a W. Hey, at least we can take that, right? Well, after a tough start yesterday against the Chargers, Russell Wilson ended the night with 3 total touchdown passes. Hey, the offense scored 31 points. That was a season high. Hope abounds. The Broncos beat the Chargers, including some backup Chargers, 31-28. Now the team's QB looking forward to next season.
We have a great football team. We didn't show it this year. There's been a lot of challenges. There's a lot of injuries. There's been a lot of tough times. There's been a lot of changes. But I know that ownership and George will do a tremendous job of making sure that we put the best football team out on that field next year. And also, obviously with the new head coach situation, I know that they'll find a great head coach.
A new head coach, you say? Well, interviews for that new head coaching vacancy, they start this week. The current Broncos defensive coordinator is first up. Then Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh, seen here, will be interviewed over Zoom the next few days. Then there's that guy. The Broncos got permission from the Saints to interview their former head coach Sean Payton. Then, new this morning, the Broncos will also be chatting with Cowboys defensive coordinator Dan Quinn. The Broncos and the rest of the NFL honored Bills player Damar Hamlin during yesterday's game. The Bills safety was tweeting from his hospital bed yesterday, cheering on his teammates in their first game back since his collapse on the field last Monday. The team honored first responders who saved his life in what was really an emotional scene from Buffalo. ABC's Morgan Norwood reports.
With an emotionally charged stadium roaring with cheers, The Buffalo Bills making a triumphant return to the gridiron for the first time since Damar Hamlin's near-fatal mid-game cardiac arrest. The game dedicated to Damar, with players and fans donning his number 3. At midfield, a tribute honoring the first responders who saved Hamlin's life. And then, the opening kickoff return.
This is storybook, an opening kickoff return for Damar Hamlin.
Damar Hamlin watching the game from his hospital room, posting this photo with his parents, holding up that signature heart with his hands. And he wasn't the only one. Bills tight end Dawson Knox scoring.
Touchdown to Dawson Knox.
Holding up that heart, saying to the camera, "I love you, Damar." And Hamlin answering back on Twitter, saying, "I love you too," as the Bills beat the Patriots 35-23.
It was a big game. Glad we did it for number 3.
All across the league, love for Damar with players wearing the phrase on their shirts. Every player from the Titans-Jaguars game meeting at the 50-yard line to pray. Did we win was the first question Damar Hamlin had when he opened his eyes for the first time in the hospital. His team answered for him on Sunday, securing a trip to the playoffs.
It was spiritual. It really was. Bone chilling, it was special.
And doctors say Hamlin has been making a remarkable recovery. He's still in critical condition, but off of a breathing tube and showing excellent cognitive function. I'm Morgan Norwood, ABC News, New York.
Still to come, Colorado's Michaela Schifrin setting even more records on the slopes over the weekend. The next record she could break later this week. Stay with us.